So I recently released Terraform with AWS course, and you can check it out on my channel. But one of the main concepts within Terraform, which is an infrastructure as code tool, is Terraform input variables. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that concept. So hi, I'm Rishab. This is rishabincloud, and today we'll be exploring Terraform input variables, and we'll also be looking at how there are different ways to assign these variables value and what precedence order it follows. So to get started, there are different attributes that you can declare within a variable in Terraform. So the first one is type, which, it can be a string type, a Boolean, or a number. Then you have default, which is the default value of the variable. So you can assign your variable default values within the declaration of the variable. The third one is description. This acts as documentation for your variable, what your variable does and what value does it hold. And this also helps if your variable isn't assigned any value with default or any other methods that we'll be looking at. So when a user or you yourself run Terraform apply and the default is missing, the description is what will tell the user, hey, you need to assign this variable a value and what that variable holds. So the description is a good way to document your variable. Or the fourth one is validation. So think of it as if you're using your variable to assign passwords, or it's an email for a user. You can do some kind of validation to make sure you're following, password practices, or make sure it's an email that gets passed to this variable. So that's where validation comes in. Sensitive. Again, if it's sensitive information, it's a Boolean type, so you can set sensitive to true or false. And moving on to Terraform input variable types. So the basic ones are string, number, and Boolean, which is pretty simple. So if it's a text string, you'll use this type string. If it's a number, you might compare it to integer type in other programming languages. Then you have some complex type, which is list, map, tuple, object, and set. And I'll be showing you what all these do and how you can declare the type within variables. So I have an example here, which holds all the different types of variables. So first we have got the string type, and you can see that the description is used to document the information about this variable. The type is set to string, and there's a default value that I've assigned to this variable. And that is how you declare a variable within Terraform. Then we have a number type. Nothing has changed apart from the type, which is set to number, and the default is 07 that I have set. Moving on with the Boolean, it can only hold two values, which is true or false. I've set the default to true, and the type is set to bool, and the description tells that this is a Boolean type variable. Now moving on to the complex variable types, the list is that you can have list of strings or list of numbers. Again, you have to define that within the type. So as you can see, I have a type set as list, but it holds strings within the list. So this is a variable of type list is the description for this, and the default is string 1, string 2, string 3. One of the things to note here with list is it can have duplicate values. So I could have string 1 at index 2 and at index 0, and this won't give an error because that's how list works. For the map type, you can think of it as a key value pair. So you can map different keys to values. So here too, you have to define what kind of map you're going to be using. In my case, I'm using string. So key 1 has a string of value 1. Key 2 has a string of value 2. Moving on, we have the object type. So you can compare this to the other to the concepts within programming language. If you have an object, in my case, I'm using this to define a user object. So the type is set to object, and then there is 3 attributes within that object. One is name, which has a type string. There's age, which is a type number, and then there is an enabled, which means if the user is enabled or not, which is type Boolean. I've set the defaults for the name to John Doe, age to 35, and then enabled to false. Next, we have the tuple type. So in the tuple type, you can have different types of values within your list. So this is how it's different to list. So I have defined the index 0 as string, index 1 as number, index 2 as boolean. And this is how it will look with the default value of item 1 being a string at index 0. Index 1 was a number, so I have 42 as default. And then index 2 was a boolean type, so I have true. You cannot do that in the list, right? And that's why you will use a tuple. Last type is set. So with set, the key difference to list is in list, we saw it can hold duplicates. Set cannot do that. So every item here needs to be a different value. So index 0 is item 1, index 1 is item 2, and index 2 is item 3. But you cannot have item 1 in index 2 and index 0 because it's a duplicate, and this will error out when you run Terraform apply. So that's the variable types and how you can declare them within Terraform. Now, moving on to the very important concept is the precedence. And the whole reason why there is a precedence is because there are different ways to assign values to your variables within Terraform. What do I mean by that? So here I've got an example called main.tf, which will basically create a local file, and the content is the variable file text, so which is defined right over here. So it's a type string, and the description is that this is a variable of type string, and the default is set to hello world from default. The file name that will be created locally is also a variable called var.filename, and the default is set to foo.bar. And then I've also added an output, which is not necessary for this demo, but it is there. So the very first way to assign values to your variable is the defaults itself. So I've set the default to hello world from default. So if I open up my terminal and I've initiated this Terraform project, so I've run Terraform init. So what I just have to do now is run Terraform plan. So if we scroll up, you can see when I run Terraform plan, there is the content. So, the local file will be created, and the content of that file is hello world from default, which is getting picked up from here, from our default variable value. Awesome. The next way to assign your variable's value is by creating a file called .tfvars. In my case, I have named it terraform.tfvars. And as you can see, it's empty right now. So if I assign file text the value of hello world from terraform.tfvars and now run Terraform plan, you can see the resource local file will be created with the content hello world from terraform.tfvars. So the value is getting assigned from this file. That is the second method. The third method you can have is auto.tfvars. So in my case, I've named the file dev.auto.tfvars, and we'll copy and say hello world from auto.tfvars and save this. So now if I go to the bottom and run Terraform plan, you can pretty much guess what will happen is the content will be assigned the value from auto.tfvars. So you can see it says hello world from auto.tfvars. And you can already kind of see a pattern here. So auto.tfvars has taken over the priority from .tfvars, right? Because we still have the variable assigned here, but this .auto.tfvars has taken precedence over .tfvars, which has taken precedence over the default value. There are two more methods to have your variables assigned a value, and that is from the command line itself. What you can do is Terraform plan or Terraform apply space -var. And I have set the variable file text to hello from command line. So if you hit enter, you'll see the content now says hello from command line. So the CLI, or the command line flag, takes precedence over all these three. And the last method is by having an environment variable. So in order to pick environment variables as Terraform variables is to set the environment variable with the prefix tf_var underscore whatever the variable name is. In our case, it's file text. So if I type in hello from environment vars, and now if I do Terraform plan without the command line flag of var, you can see that the auto.tf_vars takes precedence, even though we have the environment variable set. So in your mind, you can already kind of guess the priority that all these different methods have if all of them exist at once. And we can kind of test it out. So if I remove this from the auto.tf_vars, run Terraform plan again, we see that terraform.tf_vars takes over, which is this file. So we delete that again. And now both our auto.tf_vars and .tf_vars are empty. So we run Terraform plan. And that's when the environment variable file or the environment variable took over. So now we can see that the content says hello from environment variable. And if we don't have that, which is by I'll set the environment variable to blank and now run Terraform plan, the default has taken over, which is from our variable block itself. So to make things easier to click, I have made this diagram here. This is how the priority works. You have your variable defaults at the bottom, but if the command line flag is used, so -var or --var file, that's the values that are going to be assigned. If that flag is not present, the star.auto.tf_vars is going to take place. If that is not present, it'll look for terraform.tf_vars or star.tf_vars. If that is not present, or you also have star.tf_vars.json. And if that is not present, the environment variables will be looked at. And if environment variables are not present, it'll use the variable defaults. So that is the priority for the variables within Terraform. And that was everything related to variables within Terraform. We saw the attributes you can have within your Terraform variables. We saw how you can declare different types of variables, covering simple like string, number, and boolean to complex ones like map, tuple, and lists. And we also saw how you can assign these variables value by using different methods and what kind of takes the priority over the other method. So I hope you find this video helpful. If you want to support this channel, make sure you like, leave a comment, and you're subscribed to the channel to see more cloud and DevOps related content. Again, this is Rishab, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.